Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here. What the world needs now is love. More love.
Stars literally aligned.
He's always been the one.
There's someone out there for everyone.
I'm Nancy Regan, your host on the Canadian Love Map. We are on a journey to uncover and share love stories of all kinds.
He's never forgotten to bring me flowers.
We're hoping we're going to give a little good news to this world.
Even in these dark times, the life continues to go on.
It's all about compassion, devotion, adventure, and of course, love.
Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs love.
This is the Canadian Love Map.
Well, love is the most important thing.
At first, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never dated a woman before. Like, I know I like you, but I'm scared. I've never done this. And then it just felt so easy, which is how I knew it was right. If I could tell my high school self that was so scared that I was potentially gay, what was on the other side of all that was this, beautiful relationship. I think my mind would have been blown, of course. As, a high school kid, I never would have thought I would feel this way about it.
Today's love story belongs to Steph and Katie from Vancouver. These two lovebirds got married more than a decade ago, and their relationship has really taken flight. Katie and Steph spend their lives traveling around the world and spreading a message of love. How great is that? This is the Canadian Love Map. Steph and Katie, welcome to the Canadian Love Map podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to meet you.
I feel like you're a little bit like Waldo in those old books where you had to search for where Waldo was. Where in the world are you two right now?
We are currently on a farm in rural Ireland, literally in a converted barn.
Yeah. County Kerry to be exact. So yesterday we drove the Dingle Peninsula and it was absolutely incredible. Yeah. We'll be doing the Ring of Kerry in a few days. And we are, taking about a month to drive around Ireland.
Yeah, it's been incredible. All those scary Irish roads you see, that's what we drove yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met anyone who has such a non-boring life as you do.
We've designed it specifically to never be bored.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's do a big rewind in your lives and take me back to how you met.
Yeah. That was a while ago now.
Well, it is sort of travel related, I guess. So I had just returned back to Vancouver after a 3-month solo backpacking trip around South America. Something that I'd been wanting to do for a long time. And I had been pushing myself out of my comfort zone the whole time I was traveling. And I returned home and I thought, you know what, why does this need to end now that I'm back? I'm going to keep being uncomfortable and thought I've always wanted to do more dance. I've always wanted to take dance lessons. I grew up playing hockey and lacrosse and doing any sport you can name, but I never really did any sort of dance and things like that. So I decided to go ahead and sign up for dance classes at an adult dance studio in Vancouver. And the class that was being taught after my hip hop class was being instructed by Katie. So, that's how we met. That's how we got introduced to one another.
Yeah, this was back in 2010, so before all the apps and back when people met in person. So long time ago now.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Back in the olden days.
Exactly.
What do you remember from that auspicious day?
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing Steph around, and I had never dated women before, so I was definitely timid. It was new territory for me, but I just remember she just had such a great energy about her, and it really struck me as like she was someone I wanted to get to know. And at first we just kind of became friends and we saw each other around the studio and we were just getting to know one another. And I think both of us, it was really unclear whether or not it was like, is this friendship or is this more than friendship? It's tricky sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was all very new to me, but I just remember she just seemed like someone I really wanted to get to know, and I was definitely drawn to her.
Yeah.
So, Katie, were you not out at that point?
No, I wasn't. I was heavily questioning things at that point. And yeah, Steph was my first ever girlfriend, and I got it right the first time. So
That's a good batting average.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that's a pretty good batting average.
Yeah.
Steph, that must have been challenging though for you navigating that. If there wasn't clarity, what do you remember about those difficulties or challenges?
I was fairly well versed in the awkward navigating of dating women that weren't out, I guess, or trying to figure out. Because I spent a lot of time in hockey rinks and around a lot of queer women who were very out. That being said, I never really, was interested in dating teammates and things like that. My gaydar, if you will, wasn't really going off when I met Katie. I knew that I was very attracted to her and I wanted to get to know her more. And ideally something would come from that, but I never really thought that she was necessarily queer or so I thought, you know what, worst case scenario, if I have a really good friend out of this, then it's kind of a win-win situation.
Yeah I think that went on for a little while where we were just kind of getting to know each other, becoming friends, and we were both afraid to be the one to kind of cross that line because you don't want to get it wrong really, and then ruin potentially a new friendship. But yeah, it took a lot for us to realize like that we both obviously had crushes on each other.
Okay, so, I don't mean to pry, but that is kind of my job, frankly. It's in the description. How did it go to the next level?
Yeah, it had been probably a month of just seeing each other around and getting friendly and becoming friends. And then into the new year, my birthday was coming up and I was inviting a few people from the studio to a birthday party that I was having. And so I thought, okay, this could be a good way to maybe put it out there, see what's going on. And so I invited Steph. By that point, we'd like exchanged numbers and we'd been talking kind of outside of the studio as well. I remember when she gave me her number for something. We were planning like a group hang to go see a show, and she gave me her number, and I was like, did she give me her number? Like she gave me her number, or was this just like a friend thing? Like I was asking all my friends for advice of like trying to decode it and figure it out, but I was still really nervous.
And I was of course being intentionally vague with every move.
With everything. Yeah, but then my birthday was coming up and I thought, okay, this is a good way to do it. So I texted and invited her and said, feel free to come. And if you want to, feel free to bring someone, if you want to bring like your boyfriend or your girlfriend. And
very strategic.
Yeah, looking back, it was pretty bold, but I was proud of myself.
I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, because you were being so vague, her answer was, what did you say exactly?
I said, I don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So again, not answering the question.
Yeah. And I was like, oh. And then I just said, okay, obviously that was my way of finding out, if you're dating anyone and who you date, if you date. Yeah. And then it kind of snowballed from there.
That really opened the door.
Yeah. But I wonder, had I never done that, would it have just gone on?
It could have gone on for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that Sliding Doors movie. That one decision changed everything, right? And your willingness to put it out there like that.
Yeah, because here we are now.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
It did.
What do you remember about the early days of your relationship?
For me, it just felt so easy. Like at first I was like, oh my gosh, I've never dated a woman before. Like I know I like you, but I'm scared. I've never done this. And then as soon as we started, it was just like, oh, this feels so natural and so easy, and it wasn't scary, and even telling people wasn't scary. Like it just felt so easy, which is how I knew it was right.
Yeah, it was interesting because I found dating Katie to be quite refreshing at the time that I was in high school and university and kind of had relationships here and there with girls and women. A lot of people were really quite closeted. And so there was a lot of kind of shame around dating. So I kind of adopted some of that almost internalized homophobia and and had fears of, holding hands in public. And when I met Katie and she was just so open and telling friends and wanting to hold my hand in public, I thought, this is actually that simple. It can be that simple. And it really opened myself up. And I felt like I kind of lost some of that shame around it, which was great because I didn't even realize I was carrying that until I saw how you were approaching it.
Right. And I think I was just really naive because I just thought, well, I've dated guys before and obviously I'm going to tell people about that and be open about that. Yeah. And why would this be any different? Of course, I'm just going to treat it the same way, like not really realizing that the rest of the world doesn't treat it the same way. So it was kind of a rude awakening for me later to realize, oh, other people don't just think this is the same. But for me, I just thought it's the same to me. It feels, it feels so natural and normal that of course I'm just going to be proud of it and open about it.
It's that expression, you love who you love.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But in your relationship, it was Katie who helped Steph become more comfortable.
Yeah. I think that can be really common because it can be so complicated. I can definitely understand someone not wanting to take that on or not wanting to date someone who is going through the whole coming out experience because that's a whole thing and it's a lot. And if you've already done it and you're past it, like you don't want to kind of get pulled back into the closet or just have to deal with all those feelings again. But I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't really like that for us. But obviously we've had our challenges. But like since it's, not easy being a queer couple, but in the beginning it felt easy. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things I learned is, if you are proud of who you are and you are just who you are, it takes a lot of the sting out of what people can say about you because, if you're constantly denying things, even though deep down they're true, then other people's comments can be quite hurtful. Or when, in school especially, people spread rumors and things. And when those rumors are true, but you're trying to hide the truth, it hurts. But if you are just who you are and proud of who you are, then what people say about you, it's like, yeah, I know, I'm telling you that myself. So it takes time to get to that place. And I'm grateful that, this relationship helped get me to that place. Yeah. Because I definitely was a lot more closeted than I realized.
It's funny, our experiences are so different, but it's funny that you kind of had more internalized homophobia given that you were around so many more queer people. Yeah. You went to a high school where there were a lot of kids who were out, and I was the complete opposite. Like I had never met a lesbian before. Like it was so different, but I guess because of that, I wasn't exposed to it, so I didn't carry the same shame that you did. Yeah.
What did your families think about the relationship?
In the beginning, everyone was really shocked that I had a girlfriend. I didn't really think about like coming out as being this big act. I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm dating someone new and this is who it is. And in retrospect, like it was a bigger deal for everyone else than it was for me because I was just like, whatever.
And they were all surprised too.
That's what I mean. Like they were so surprised. It was such a big deal to them. And yeah, maybe I should have made more of a big deal of it. I don't know.
When I initially came out to my family, no one was really surprised. And then in response to the relationship, I think everyone was just so happy that I was being my real self, and a huge weight was lifted, and I was definitely a lot more free and open and happy, and I think everyone was quite happy with that. So
our presenting sponsor on the Canadian Love Map podcast is Charm Diamond Centers, so I have to ask about the engagement. Who asked who?
What's your guess?
I say Katie asked Steph.
Oh, I love that.
I like that.
No, it was actually the other way around.
Yeah, she made the first bold move in the relationship, so I stepped up and was the one to propose. It was quite planned out. It was, of course, while we were on a trip because, we love to travel. Yeah. New York is one of our favorite cities. And in particular, the Gramercy Park, Flatiron District area is just one of our favorite spots. And there was a restaurant that's no longer there, unfortunately, but one of our favorite restaurants, a friend of ours was working there at the time. So I decided to do it there, not at the restaurant, but outside after we had had a lovely meal. So I went to school in the U.S., so I have quite a few friends in that area, which was helpful in this situation.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, I enlisted him to come and sit on the steps of a brownstone right outside the restaurant and play Bright Eyes, First Day of My Life, which was actually a song that the first dance class that I took that Katie was instructing, she did a combination. So she did choreography to this song. And the lyrics of the song have just been perfect for our relationship in general, but it also just happens to be significant in that it was one of the first times we really interacted. So my friend was sitting on the brownstone with his guitar, playing the song as we were walking out of the restaurant, and I just stopped and got down on one knee and asked.
It was
kind of a
so
perfect
magical.
New York moment.
It was. And it's funny because when those things happen and you're not expecting them, it takes a second to really realize what's going on. And I just remember, like, we had this perfect lunch. It was such a nice afternoon. And then we walked out of the restaurant and it was like, oh, let's go this way. And then Steph kind of stopped me, like, listen to the song.
I thought she would hear the song and recognize it.
Yeah, and I didn't. And then it didn't, like, I didn't clock it that this was happening. It was just like, oh, like, what a funny coincidence. Like, and it all just happened so quickly. And then by the time I realized, like, oh no, like something's happening here, then yeah, she was already asking me. And it was just such a blur. I'm so glad we had someone taking a little video of it and photos, because it's like, you don't remember what happened. Yeah. I just remember you got down on one knee. I got down on my knees. We were both just like kneeling in the street, like crying and hugging. And the video is hilarious because people are just walking by, staring at us, like, what's going on, and smiling at us. And
And then
did anyone stop at figuring out what was going on? Were there people who actually stopped? Yeah.
People could definitely tell. Someone went up the stairs probably to like go home to their apartment and saw us and was just smiling. And then after we stood up and I kind of realized, like, oh, this was like a whole thing that she planned. Like, I looked back to the restaurant and our friend and the other servers were all like on the patio peeking around the corner watching, and
with champagne.
Yeah, and he had a tray of champagne waiting, and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone knew about this. And then it kind of hit me, and then once we talked about it, I realized that everyone knew, like our friends, families back home, everyone knew. And I was just shocked that she was able to keep a secret, because like we tell each other everything, and I still don't know how you managed to keep that from me.
It was all very sneaky.
You did a really good job.
But it was worth all the work, right, Steph?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
what
then I finally
moment.
repaid it one day on our 5th wedding anniversary, because Steph is like impossible to surprise.
Yeah.
It's really hard to keep secrets from her. But we never talked about like you also getting proposed to get engaged, but I kind of always wanted to repay it one day with like a big surprise. So for our 5th wedding anniversary, we did a big photo shoot with our wedding photographer to celebrate, and we went back to the hotel that we stayed in for our wedding. And it was very special, so I think it was easy to kind of surprise you because she already knew something special was happening. But during the photo shoot, I got down on one knee with a little sign that said, "Can I take your name?" And I asked Steph, oh, I'm going to cry. And I asked Steph if I could take her name for our 5th wedding anniversary. So that was very special.
Yeah.
And you didn't know.
I didn't know.
You had no idea.
I thought something was happening, but I didn't know what.
Yeah.
So when I saw the sign, I was, it was very special.
I'm guessing you said yes, Steph.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels really special to share.
We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centers. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. Now, I of course, I mentioned seeing your huge following on social media. I'm curious, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was the adventurous travel life or the social media that came first?
Yeah, well, it basically all kind of happened at the same time. We got married at the end of 2015, and we've always enjoyed travel. Yeah. So we've always found ways of traveling as much as we could with our work and everything.
Because we've always been flexible with our work.
Yeah, So we were living in Ontario at that time, and I'd been on a contract that we'd been there for about a year. and we got married, and then we kind of went on our honeymoon, which was amazing. And then we went back to our house and to Theo and to our work. And we were just kind of like, is this what married life is going to look like for us? Are we going to live like in the suburbs in a house with our dog? And is that it? Like, that doesn't feel like us.
No, it doesn't feel like us at all.
No. So like 3 months later, we had packed up our whole house, put all of our stuff in storage, rented it out, and just decided to travel full time and like take all of our work remote and just go for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we never looked back.
But what we didn't realize was kind of the lack of information there was for traveling as queer women. Because of course, traveling to other countries, there are considerations when you are a queer couple. Laws are different in other countries, and public perception and public opinion are different. So, you want to go in with the most information that you can, so you know what to expect and how to how to travel around. But there really wasn't a lot that was geared specifically toward queer women. So, we didn't really need to know the gay beaches and the cruising spots and things like that. So, basically we just started doing all that research ourselves and putting it out there and sharing it. And we got a huge response from people who were looking for that information as well. And it kind of snowballed and grew from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, I guess, 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really grown since then. And it started because we saw like a gap to fill, and then just became a great source of community and a great way to document all of our travels.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. I mean, it's amazing we've been able to turn this into a business, but also I just love that we have all these memories just for ourselves one day to look back on. Is really special.
I remember the expression PDA, learning that in high school, public display of affection. And you guys are all about the PDA on your social media, but I think it's very intentional. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for both of us growing up, we never saw that representation of queer women and lesbian couples. And like I said, I had no exposure at all, like my whole life really until I met you. So it's nice to be able to be that for other people and to just normalize it, and for people to just see it and be like, yeah, that's just a couple in love. It doesn't matter that they're two women, and it doesn't have to be over sexualized. It doesn't have to be any of these things. It can just be normal. And it's how we are in real life, and we just want to bring that to what we share online. We just really want to be ourselves, and that's who we are. If anyone knows us in person in real life, we are very affectionate. So we like sharing that just to normalize it and be who we are. And we don't hide that when we travel as well. We try to go places that are more accepting and are more queer friendly, because there are a lot of places where we can just be ourselves and don't have to feel like we can't hold hands in public or anything like that. We can just be open about the fact that we're married. And
I think a lot of other people want to do the same. And so, if we can go somewhere, we do our research ahead of time, and then, we are just ourselves when it is safe to do so. And then we can share about our experiences. I think a lot of people get a lot of value from that, and they know what to expect, or maybe they'll choose to go to a destination because of a good experience we've had or some information we've shared. And I think that's really, really nice to be able to do as well. So
yeah, we get messages from couples all the time saying, we're trying to plan our honeymoon and we want to go somewhere where we can just be comfortable and like, we'll have just gotten married. We want to be able to like kiss and hold hands and not worry about it. Like, where can we go where we can just be ourselves? I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
Well, in that context, you're giving people a great gift. You're being of service.
I mean, that's definitely why we do it. It's so nice to be able to be that representation and build community for other people, and be able to do the thing that we feel like we never had ourselves and kind of pass that on.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad, Katie, that you said, I said public display of affection, but you did point out it's not overly sexualized. And it made me realize that if there's one word that I would use to describe your feed, it's this real sense of tenderness between the two of you, which is really extraordinary. Tell me about your relationship now and what role tenderness plays, I guess.
Yeah, that's such a nice compliment.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I say it doesn't have to be overly sexualized is just because for queer women, that seems to be where everyone goes. It just becomes this thing that's like for the male gaze, and like, it's just not that at all. And for us, it's just all about love and how we feel about each other, and that we just want people to be able to see that there's such a difference there.
Yeah. I think it's this interesting fine line of, a lot of the time people think, oh, they're best friends or sisters or, any number of things. But there is, the best friend part is such an important aspect because
we
genuinely we are best friends. But we were also, in a relationship and we're married and we're a couple. And I think that, that tenderness you speak of, it's also just that we're our biggest cheerleaders, and we love and support each other in ways that go beyond just kind of your typical relationship, I guess, because we want each other to grow and evolve in personal ways as well as a couple. A lot of people think that when people spend all their time together, they're codependent, but we really make an effort to still challenge each other on things and push each other to be constantly growing and evolving on a personal level as well, while still, spending a ton of time together and really enjoying it.
Definitely. So. Yeah. And I think because we met when we were quite young as well, it was my 22nd birthday that Steph came to. So yeah, we were both in our like early mid 20s, and being that age and meeting your forever partner at that age, like we've just grown up so much together. And going through that, I think we're just excited to see like all the different versions of each other that we'll get to see and grow into as we grow older together, and just recognizing that like growth and change is such a constant, and that we're excited about that. And it's nice to watch each other grow up and support each other on our own personal journeys and all the things that we go through, and just be able to be there through all of it. Yeah.
If you go back to that younger version of yourself, Steph, that was worried about people's negative opinions, how has that part of you been triggered by this very public life on social media? Because I know inevitably you're going to encounter the crappy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, a great question.
It's honestly so therapeutic to just be like, to put ourselves out there, to put myself out there and be so genuinely proud of this relationship, because, not only am I just proud to be a queer woman now, and I can say that confidently, I'm so proud of what we have as a couple, the communication we have with one another, the growth and the love and respect and everything. I mean, it's, not to be cliche, but it is kind of like an ideal relationship. So if I could tell my high school self that was so scared that I was potentially gay, if I could tell myself that what was on the other side of all that was this, beautiful relationship, I think, my mind would have been blown, of course, because as, a high school kid, I never would have thought I would feel this way about it.
Well, I need to take a break now to go cry in another room. No, that's so beautifully put. And it's so touching to hear you, eloquently describe your experience like that. Let's talk about the positive side of social media and reaching all those people. What stories have you heard from people that really made you so proud of what you're doing and feel that sense of purpose?
We receive so many messages from people who are just sharing, their most like personal, intimate stories. And I always feel so touched when people are open to sharing with us. It feels so special that they trust us with that. Hearing people's coming out stories, just people of all walks of life, like not just, queer women of our age, but people of all identities, all walks of life, just becoming happier, more proud versions of themselves. And just from seeing things online. And I mean, I don't want to pretend that it's just us. There are lots of people creating online that are adding to the visibility and the representation and all of that. But people having access to that wherever they are in the world, just being able to open their phone and see that, it's absolutely life-changing. So getting to hear that from people and just knowing that we can be a small part of that impact, it means so much, because I can only imagine how I would have felt if I had that when I was in my confused, questioning phase. Like, it was just before social media. It was just before all of that. And had I just seen a woman that I could relate to who was a proud lesbian, it just would have blown my mind. I would have been like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, I didn't know that was an option for me. Like, that's obviously what this is. And just knowing that we can contribute to that for other people, it means so much, and it's at the heart of why we do this.
Yeah, I think like you said, with people who are maybe in countries where it's illegal, or they're living with families who aren't supportive, just knowing that there's something else out there that isn't just a character in a movie, which is also great that there's all that representation now too, but seeing real people living real lives, and knowing that they actually can even have access to those people through messages and things like that. It's really amazing. It's really changed a lot.
It's so cliche, but it really does get better.
Yeah.
It really does get better.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like some kind of contribution karma that you get to live these amazing adventure-filled lives because you're doing so much to give others. What is your favorite thing about traveling?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to pick. I don't know. I think both of us have the type of personality where we get bored easily and we just love to be doing new things all the time. And I think just constantly being in new situations and being forced to just like grow and be out of our comfort zone, like the way it contributes to our personal growth, I think is the best part, because I just think it makes us better people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, getting to experience different cultures, different languages, different foods, different customs, driving on the left side of the road on tiny, narrow Irish roads, all these things that I always kind of pinpoint my biggest growth moments to the times when I was the most uncomfortable or had to face adversity or go through something difficult. And travel is definitely full of that. And, by no means do we go out on trips saying, let's be as uncomfortable as possible. But it's those little moments that we have to troubleshoot or, problem solve, think on the fly kind of thing that, we really do grow the most from. And I'm really grateful for all those moments. And then of course, obviously just fun adventures and witnessing some of, nature's most incredible things and seeing some of this architecture from being in North America from before we can even imagine some of the history in some of these countries that we get to travel to. It's incredible. It's incredible for these experiences. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, we feel so lucky. And I know that most people will only get to do a fraction of this in their lifetime. And it's just, we want to do this as much as we possibly can for as long as we possibly can. And there's just so much of the world to see. And
there's so much to see.
Yeah, we still have a long bucket list.
But you also take us along as your followers, so we get to live vicariously through you. And I think that's a big part of the loyalty of your following. I don't know if you can single out one favorite adventure you've had, but tell me one juicy one.
I mean, everywhere is so special in its own way. I think that this past year, like post-COVID, this is kind of when we've finally gotten back to how we were traveling in the before times. Because during the pandemic, we traveled so much just locally, which was incredible. We got to see so much more of Canada, so much more of our home province, which is amazing. But being back to doing big international trips is so nice. And this Europe trip and the Europe trip we did in the fall with Theo has been so special, just because getting to travel with him and just taking him as many places as possible and to places that are so dog friendly is really special. I don't think people in North America realize just how dog friendly it is here in comparison. We just feel so happy getting to bring him everywhere with us. So that's been really special.
It's also a great way to meet people and talk to people. Yeah. Because everyone wants to come over and say hi. And then we end up striking up a conversation and, getting some insight into the local experience. And that's really special. Yeah. Obviously I love traveling with Theo so much, but for trips that we haven't brought him on, I would say Japan was one of my favorites, and we definitely want to go back. We spent some time in Tokyo, and it was just just such a unique experience, and I definitely want to go back there. And the other one for me is Buenos Aires was one of my favorite cities to travel to before I met Katie. I'd gone there twice, and in 2019, I believe, we went together for the first time, and just taking you around to all my favorite spots. I absolutely love that city. There's a certain energy. Everyone is just so passionate. And the food is amazing now that it's become a little bit more vegan friendly. Yeah. Just the culture, the vibe. Yeah.
I got to call my travel agent. I'm getting wanderlust just listening to you.
Yeah.
How big is your bucket?
Well, it's pretty full, but it's also, there's lots of space for new adventures, I'd say.
there are still so many places I want to go back to, and then there are so many new places I want to go to. It's even to spend all of our time doing this, it still just feels like there's never enough time. There's never enough time. Like, we have a month to travel around Ireland, and we have a car, and we're road tripping, and we're seeing so much. But I'm still just like, there's more. There's so much more. Like, you could spend 6 months here. You could, like, there's just always so much more to experience.
Well, and we even realized that when, during the pandemic, and we were just staying closer to home, like the province of BC, there's so much to explore there, and we're really lucky that we got to do so much locally. But you don't realize, I mean, even just in your own backyard, there's so many experiences. And
that's true. And we always try to remind people of that, because obviously it's not easy for everyone to just drop everything and go off on a big international adventure. But there's still so many ways to have adventures. There's still so many ways to feed that wanderlust and do things like that, even close to home.
Yeah.
I always like to wrap up these conversations by asking what it is you love most about each other. And frankly, I can't wait to hear your answers.
I think the thing I admire most and love most is just that Steph is like the most determined person I have ever met. And in so many ways, like, she's always determined to solve a problem. No problem goes unsolved.
Stubborn, determined.
No, but it is just like, you will figure anything out. Like, if we have a problem with literally anything, I'm like, oh, do we need to ask for help? Like, no. You will always figure it out, just because you're so determined, and because you have confidence and you believe that you'll be able to figure it out, which I really admire. And also determined in the way that you're just determined to live an amazing life. You're just determined to be a great person and a happy person, and you're always so empowered to make changes. Like, you never seem stuck. You always know that you can make a change, and you're always just determined to make that change if you need to. Does that make sense? That's something that I really admire, and has just been such a light in our relationship, I think, because it just always feels like we can overcome anything.
Luckily, Katie's pretty incredible, so there's no shortage of things to say about you as well. But Katie's one of the most creative people I've ever met, in the, artistic sense, in that there's a huge creative aspect to our business and our life, obviously, and the amazing ideas you always come up with are always so fun to hear, like, what you have ideas for. And then with that combination of, she comes up with an idea and I usually figure out a way to make it happen. But yeah, I always love just brainstorming and just talking about these things with you, because you always come up with such fun ideas. You're the most compassionate and in touch with your feelings and emotions person that I've ever met, in a way that's really opened me up to do more of that myself. And if anyone in our lives is going through anything, or needs a shoulder to cry on, or someone to talk it through, like, Katie is that person. I'm always so amazed at how she just always knows what to say to someone when they're going through things, and it's absolutely incredible. Like, your level of emotional intelligence is just off the charts. And I think it's really made us as a couple, like, really great communicators, because you're helping me with a lot of that as well. So, yeah.
I want to introduce you both to a song. I want you to check out the song Tiny Lights by Coco Love Alcorn. It talks about how we are all tiny lights in the world. And I just want to say to both of you, thank you for shining so brightly.
Aww.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for talking to us on the Canadian Love Map.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap, or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.